Welcome back! Today we'll be reading Humanity Fearless, made by you/ClocktowerEchos. Thanks for the writer's permission. The link for the story is in the description and I hope you'll enjoy. Let's begin. There are 4 species counted among the war chamber of the Greater Galactic Council, the massive Cthulhu, Titan-like in size and strength, each individual Cthulhu capable of carrying a tank's worth of weaponry and armor into battle alone. The predatory Tragnar, apex warriors and masters of the hunt who could track a scent for miles and lunge at their prey with a brutal fury and savage efficiency. The scholarly Dalnaga, religious engineers who developed weapons of such potency that the greatest of their creations could shatter the stars themselves had they not been bound by their faith. And then there are humans, who are none of those things. They are not the strongest, nor the quickest, nor the smartest, nor the toughest, nor the most numerically vast. A single Cthulhu could comfortably take on a platoon of Terran Union soldiers, a company of them capable of fighting a Terran tank brigade to a standstill. Tragnar warpacks practically hunted freely on isolated human outposts for fun during their war with humanity, stalking from the shadows and lunging at them with their rending claws. And while they never fought the Dalnaga, reports from observers invited by the Dalnaga themselves claim to have witnessed an arsenal that made nuclear weapons, once so feared by the governments of old Earth, look like hand grenades. So, why does humanity stand among these martial superpowers of the galaxy, you might ask? Many drunken, nationalistic ramblers and confused casual observers have asked the same. It is for one simple reason. Humans are the only species who can fight the monsters the other 3 cannot. Space is vast and dark, holding as many wonders as it does horrors. When the black fleets of the Zark came screaming out of the sunless void of the darkness, they brought them primordial horrors, manifestations of a terrifying unreality, and monuments of a fate so eldritch it could only be described as madness. These monsters sent off psychic shockwaves, crippling the minds of those who felt it with the crushing realization of the existential dread. The pride all species held in their ability to have conquered their homeworlds and expanded across the stars brought down with the terrifying realization of how insignificant they were cosmologically. And where these god avatars walked, hordes of twisted wretches, demonic abominations, and feral fanatics followed. The Cthulhu were crushed like ants, their large bodies used as empty husks for the most degenerate of Zark bio-creations that stalked battlefields like distant, shambling statues forced into a torturous unlife. Ragnar hid in holes which soon became their graves, their hunting prowess meaning nothing against a foe that hunted them back with such a ruthless efficiency that just the sight of one could stun a whole warpack, as they remembered a time when their pre-sentient ancestors were still hunted by other predators. And the Zark subverted the Dalnaga's weapons by attacking their controllers directly, crippling them with infectious nightmares of powerlessness and of realization that their gods had no power to protect them, before harvesting their brains and knowledge for ever more sinister inventions. The council was in disarray. The many hundreds of species and thousands of planets were thrown into chaos at the onset of a foe who fed off the heights of their pride, only to cast them down into the deepest pits of despair. No one in their entire history of sapient civilization had ever conceived of such a threat, one that showed how futile their struggles were and how insignificant their creations would be. All except for one. When humans first breached the barrier of FTL, they were seen as the humblest of all races. By comparison to the other species, their ships and cities lacked the huge monuments common across other planets. Boasting and bragging were seen as rude in their curious culture, and despite making it past the great filter, they kept showing themselves as the underdogs in their stories. Many governments thought it to be some kind of defeatist self-propaganda of a pacifist race. A notion only dispelled after the violence of human history was known and the Terran Union fought the Tragnar to a standstill in a war over colonization rights. However much respect they gained, though, was never enough to outweigh the conception that they were meek, cowardly creatures, a young race who didn't believe in its own abilities enough to project them. This lack of hubris, as the humans saw it, did not come from a place of weakness, however, but from a place of understanding. An understanding that as far as they had come, they still had much to learn, and that for as much as they had to learn, the galaxy they lived in was barely a speck on the scale of the universe. Whereas the media of the other races showed them standing tall, fearless, and triumphant over adversity and hardship, human media showed humans who failed to do so, overcome by a villain or greater force. Even in the situations where humans won, their path was seldom easy or smooth. To them, a 95% chance of failure wasn't certain doom, but a 5% chance of success. Uniquely among human media as well, they had developed the concept of existential horror, a concept utterly alien to the other races of the Council. They even had a word for it that could never be properly translated. Lovecraftian. What could exist that could make existence itself seem meaningless? The Zark proved they could. Their avatars brought on a fear so ancient, so primal, that all could feel the times their ancestors were still afraid of thunder and the dark beyond meager campfires. The Cathand, the Tragnar, the Dalnaga, they were all new to this feeling of fear embedded in the very DNA of life itself. But humans weren't. Across 1,000 worlds, and for nearly 27 long, bloody years, the sons and daughters of Earth fought hopeless battles and desperate last stands. Often they were the last lines of defense, or sacrificial rearguard, not out of choice, but because all other forces had fled the battle. Great armies were raised from humanity's many planets, colonies, and nations, her people throwing themselves into the gullets of thirsting monsters and the maws of laughing gods, all to buy time, to hold the line. The 93rd Kingsguard Infantry held a thin red line of makeshift defenses on the Cthulhu world of Octorad, refusing to retreat even as they were overrun by the hordes of the Zark who tore into them. Pavalak, an invaluable industrial world, held for 3 years against the siege due to the heroic defense of the 133rd Vieja Tarsia Infantry and the 22nd Vojtek Armored, using half-finished tanks by the end of the siege as they were overrun. The Tragnar forever remembered the 52nd Zulu Legion when they came to the aid of their desperate homeworld. It was the 86th Uller Mera and the 160th Lucky Drongos who were first into the breach during the failed counterattack on the Zark fortress on the world of Ulipiat. The 71st Shujin, 77th Chassawoi, 101st Screaming Eagles, and 166th Hai Hengfu all fought, bled, and died in the apocalyptic battle of the Dalnaga archive world of Eliad 6. And when the 201st Aguilias Starfighter Corps discovered the Zark Void Forge, they rammed their fighters straight into it once their ammo ran dry, desperately preventing the creation of another Cthulhu-like god avatar. As each man and woman died, they did so with fury and vengeance unseen by the wider galaxy on their lips, their souls burning like a beacon against the endless darkness. It was humanity, bleeding and battered as it was, who led the armada that crushed the last battalion of the Zark, Zark Prime. At the helm was the battleship Solar, the greatest naval vessel ever built. 5 miles long with Cthulhu armor, Tragnar sensor arrays, and Delnaga guns. Battleship Solar led a combined force of over 24 species to the very gates of hell itself, where the Zark kept their most terrible god avatars. With each pass of their ethereal weapons, ships weren't just destroyed, but erased from reality itself. Some fled, others retreated to maximum weapons range. Only the ships of the Terran Navy dared to get close, to stare the abyss in the eye and dare to blink. And as they detonated a human Delnaga hybrid bomb above the Zark's homeworld, the abyss blinked. Humanity is not the strongest, nor the quickest, nor the smartest, nor the toughest, nor the most numerically vast. But they don't have to be. They never saw themselves based on what they did, but what they could do. Where everyone else had seen near certain defeat and damnation, humans bet everything on that tiniest chance of victory, gambling against hope and forgotten gods on an underdog victory. It had been humans, the cowards who sacrificed untold millions on planets not their own. It had been humans, the unassuming, who led the great galactic armada to Zark Prime. It had been humans, the prideless, who continues to hunt the remaining god avatars and monsters left over from the Zark to this day. It had been humans, the humble, who had cancelled the apocalypse. It is humans, the fearless, who stand as the galaxy's monster hunters. When some new horror or monster rises out of the abyss of space, or an old one dares to reveal its hated head, it is humanity who the Cthulhu, the Tragnar, and the Delnaga turn to. Thank you for listening. I'm glad to still have you here. I apologize for not uploading for a month, and sorry if I have failed to meet the expectations that I may have created. Life's been weird, and I haven't had the will to do this for a while. I still may not, but here is another narration. In the meanwhile, thank you all for still staying with the channel. If you have stuck around, go and show your appreciation to the writer on HFY. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.